Hello, I'm EFL. I'm talking from Taiwan. I work at the National Kaohsiung University of Applied Sciences in southern Taiwan. I'm going to talk briefly about my research paper in this video. This paper was recently published in the journal Language Teaching Research. The title of the paper is Implementing Reflective Portfolios for Promoting Autonomous Learning Among EFL College Students in Taiwan. In this study, I used my class, Journalistic English, to explore how portfolios can be used to promote the development of learner autonomy in a university context in Taiwan. I've been teaching this class for several years. In this class, I've used English newspapers as authentic course materials to develop students' reading comprehension. I found English newspapers and attractive materials for EFL learners as they provide authentic learning content. Students not only learn vocabulary used in the real world, but also improve their general knowledge and broaden their worldviews. However, I had surveyed my students and found them rarely read English newspapers. Therefore, I've been thinking an approach that can motivate them to read English newspapers and engage them in autonomous learning, so they can continue to read English newspapers and learn English even after they leave school. Then I thought of using portfolios. I thought portfolios may be used to instill students' habits of reading English newspapers. I looked into the literature related with portfolios. I found problems of implementing portfolios in Asian contexts have been reported, such as producing critical reflection in portfolios might be difficult for Asian students. The reason may be Asian students tend to have less individual voice because they are accustomed to structured learning environment. Researchers have also found Asian students had difficulties in managing time and learning materials due to their lack of experience in producing portfolios. I've also looked into the relevant literature about learner autonomy. I found that some scholars have argued the concept is not culture-free. It's because autonomy is essentially an idea from Western culture which values independence and individualism. Learners and teachers in countries which value collectivism, such as those with Confucian heritage cultures, may find the concept of learner autonomy difficult to be incorporated into their learning and teaching. Therefore, to contextualize autonomy-based pedagogies becomes important, especially in a local setting where culture and environment may hamper autonomy development. The indication I get from the literature is that Asian EFL students may need training in developing skills and knowledge concerning autonomous learning. In addition, for students who lack of experiences of producing portfolios, teachers' guidance may be crucial. And finally, for teachers in Asian contexts whose students are novices in autonomous learning, may face the challenge of negotiating their roles between being traditional decision makers and facilitators. These concerns prompted me to document how teachers in Asian contexts play their multiple roles to contextualize their pedagogy in order to promote autonomous learning. So, in this study, 101 junior students participated in this class. All students were required to complete their individual portfolios. The students were asked to select and read English news articles and write their reflections after reading, and collected their reflections into their portfolios. The process of implementing the portfolios began with a pre-course questionnaire. The results showed students had no portfolio experience and they rarely read English newspapers. Since the students had no experiences of portfolio and had little knowledge of autonomous learning, I invited them to participate in the process of deciding the format of portfolio, in hope they would have better ideas about how autonomous learning should be proceeded. I started the process as being a decision maker since they had no experience. During the first class meeting, I briefly introduced the purpose of the portfolio project. I instructed each student to select 6 English news articles. I provided an entry form for them to follow. They were advised to record the problems they were unable to solve so that the instructor might offer help. After the format was decided, the next step is to let them be aware of the concept of autonomous learning. So, I explained the concept of autonomous learning. I explained that they needed to identify the objectives they would like to achieve by completing their portfolios. At this step, I perceived myself as a facilitator rather than a decision maker. The next step is to establish assessment criteria. At this point, I was again a facilitator, inviting the student to constitute the assessment criteria so that they would have standards to follow, and also own this part of learning. The next step comes to prepare the students with needed skills and knowledge. I taught them how to select and evaluate information from the internet. I also introduced them to several multi-source dictionaries that were especially useful for understanding the background information in news stories. At this stage, I was a facilitator and a resource person. The next step is to monitor progress. Since previous research indicates that students had time management problems, I encouraged them to set out mini deadlines for each entry. At this point, the student had to turn in the first 2 entries. I share my observations after reading the entries. I found the students asked a lot of questions about vocabulary and idiom. I re-emphasized the advantages of online multi-resource dictionaries to look for answers they needed. I also noticed that the majority of their reflections tended to be summary rather than reflections. I reminded them that for a reflective portfolio, reflection was more important than mere summary. The reading and the grading load was already very heavy at this point, as was that of answering students' questions. The students expected me to be a resource person, but I perceived that students should be more independent in finding answers. Here comes the final step, which is portfolio assessment. After reading all the entries, I found the length and quality of their reflections varied greatly. The top 20% were able to provide analytical and logical reflection, while the bottom 20% provided only a couple of sentences. Most of the questions asked by the students were still about vocabulary and idiom, but the number of questions have been reduced greatly. The result perhaps indicated that the students had become more efficient in finding answers. Clearly, the grading and reading load was enormous. It was clear that I needed to consider possible solutions for easing the workload if I planned to use portfolios in the future. At the end of the semester, I used a post-course questionnaire to investigate students' perception for the course. I found the students' understanding of autonomous learning has improved. They became more aware of the skills and knowledge for autonomous learning, including setting learning goals, locating materials, and monitoring their progress. The portfolios engage the students in multi-domain learning. For instance, the portfolio provided them a chance to engage in social learning by sharing their reflection with peers and the teacher. The results of the study show, although the students had improved their awareness of autonomous learning, they encountered the challenge of writing critical reflections. These findings imply the teachers in Asian contexts may need to provide instruction of critical thinking and writing. I found the teacher's biggest challenge is to play different roles at different stages. In addition, the grading at the teacher's side is enormous. Therefore, to reduce the grading load, the number of entries can be reduced. Secondly, pair instead of individual portfolios would have the numbers to be graded and encourage peer check. Through this study, I have become aware of the challenges, as well as the opportunities of using portfolios in Taiwan. For me, the study provided an opportunity to reflect my practice and to grow my teaching in research. Ultimately, both the students and I benefited. That's the end of my talk. I found you have found this report informative. Thank you for your time. Goodbye.